I'm Shwetha. I have over 16 years of experience in IT and software.
So my name's Jeff Burke. I'm a senior cloud solutions architect at Shenoy.
My name is Alistair. I am a contract senior DevOps and platform engineer working for the UK government.
I'll be giving you a session on general preparation tips for any sort of Kubernetes exam. A little introduction about myself. I'm Shwetha. I have over 16 years of experience in IT and software. Currently, I'm working as a senior DevOps engineer at SAP Hybris based in Munich. I have all 3 Kubernetes certifications. I started off with CKAD. Basically, that was good enough for my job and my current role. But then I was also interested in learning more about Kubernetes, so I did the CKA as well. And then I thought, why stop there? Let me just get the CKS also, because it's the last Kubernetes certification that you can also have, and one of the toughest. And apart from Kubernetes, I also have a bunch of Azure certifications. I have an ongoing Azure Administrator Associate, an expired Developer Associate certification, and an active Certified Azure Solutions Architect certification. I like to keep myself updated on various technologies, and I have accounts on various online teaching platforms where Coursera, Udemy, and CodeCloud, etc., where you can grab this knowledge and then you can just keep updating yourself anytime. And when I'm not learning or when I'm not working, I like to play table tennis. I go on hikes. I like to go on long runs, etc. So that's me. Down there below, you also see my LinkedIn ID, so feel free to connect with me. Coming to the agenda for today, we will start off with the prerequisites for any of these Kubernetes exams. What should you know before you start the preparation, basically? Then we'll go on to the exam preparation itself, where I'll cover the best practices for the practice labs, mock exams, and lightning labs. Then we'll end that section with checking if you are ready for the examination itself. Then we'll go into the examination, where I'll cover what you could do on the day before and on the day of the exam to ensure that everything goes on smoothly. And in case you need to go for retakes, how do you go about it? And then we'll end with question and answers. When I started learning Kubernetes, I had heard a lot of these things. Some people even told me that you need to have 3-4 years of experience on Kubernetes before you attempt the exam. Otherwise, you would end up failing. And some of them even said you need to have advanced Linux knowledge. Like you need to know what C groups are and how to use them, etc. And some said that you need to have extensive knowledge of VI, etc. But of all that things listed on the screen, only these were required, really. You need to know basic Linux directory structure, because you will need to navigate, find files, etc., and modify files in that location, or probably create some. So you need to know your way around the Linux directory structure. And YAML, mainly because for all of the 3 exams, you will be editing some or the other file in the YAML. And sometimes to add sections or remove sections, you need to be sure where exactly to indent that section, so you don't end up with errors. And then when you apply it, then you get to know that there was a problem and then get into that circle, which will waste your time. And for VI, you need to know some shortcuts. You don't need to know extensive VI. I'll cover some of the commands that you know, and you're sorted basically for the exam. These 3, you need it for every Kubernetes exam. But the JSON part, you would need it only if you are going for CKA and CKS. For the CKAD, you don't really need the JSON part. So how do you start on the preparation? First off, you decide on the exam which you want to take, and then you buy the corresponding books. But for many of them, you have questions like, which one do you go for, CKAD or CKA or CKS? For CKS, it is easy because CKA is the prerequisite there. But if you really were deciding or you're not sure which one to go for between CKAD or CKA, then you can take this as a small advice. For developers, it is you can try CKAE. For administrators, you can go for CKA. And if you are also someone interested in security, then you can also go for CKA plus CKS combination. But in case you are just somebody starting off fresh and you can do any of these three, then I would say just go for all these three. Because yeah, you would deepen your knowledge and it really helps during your work or even progressing in your career. Then you also need to join the relevant Slack channel in the Code Cloud community or the Slack workspace. Stress on the relevant, mainly because in each of these channels that I mentioned there across the course name, you'll find other students like yourself who are also on the same journey. So you will see a lot of questions being discussed. And some of the discussions are really useful. And you also get to know, oh, I didn't think of that from this perspective. So sometimes it gives you a really different perspective on things that you're learning. And sometimes you can also help out other students by answering those questions. And when you're on the correct channel, your queries that you have will be answered in a timely fashion, either by the experts who are always on the community looking out for questions to answer, or by your fellow students themselves. And then finally, I would say make a tentative study plan. We cover this a little more here in detail. First off, don't wait till the last month to start the preparation. What I mean by this is some of us, basically me, I had bought my voucher or I purchased the exams when there is Black Friday or Cyber Monday offer. Basically, it's 50% off on the exams, right? So I purchased it. And then from then on, I have 1 year to complete my exam and the retakes if necessary. So I know that for the first 2 months after buying the voucher or the exam, I'm not going to start my preparation. Basically, during that time, I'll be lazily going around doing nothing. And then I start my preparation. But this time for CKS, I knew that it was the hardest certification. So I started a little bit in advance. I started 6 months in advance, then did the course and then got sidetracked a bit and then I came back. But then last month, I had about 2 months to complete my certification. And it was a bit stressful for me because I did not know in case I fail, what am I going to do? So there will be some sort of unnecessary stress. So it's better to start preparation early so you can smoothly progress and then use the retake also if necessary. Then I would say plan a fixed number of hours every week and dedicate that to that. Coming back to the example that I mentioned, I started off 6 months ago with the preparation. I wasn't thorough with the preparation in the sense I wasn't dedicating every single day certain amount of time to that. Because of which I lost interest or I got sidetracked with other activities in between. And later on, when I came back, I felt some of the course material was like I was visiting it for the first time. So in order to avoid that kind of a scenario, what I would say is dedicate a small period of time every single day, maybe 30 minutes or 15 minutes even, but do it every day. So that way you get into a habit and anything that you do for 21 days continuously becomes a habit. And when you do this continuously, your interest level in the course or in the achievement of the certification itself, that will not drop off. It will remain constant and you will start dedicating more and more time to learning the course material, which will really help if you just make a plan and stick to it. And sometimes the concepts that are covered in the lectures, they are a little bit tough. So maybe you go through it once, maybe you understand it, or maybe sometimes you feel that, okay, I have not understood this part of the lecture. So either you do that part again or you watch the whole lecture again. So when you do this continuously, you develop this, you understand the concept better. And sometimes it also helps if the topic is really complex, you can draw a picture. For example, the TLS topic, where the instructor actually helps you understand where two images, how does the server auth work? How does the client auth work? So with that, you can easily understand it a lot better. So you can do the same thing. You can take a actual pen and paper and start drawing it, or try to imagine it in your mind with the help of images. How, okay, and now this certificate goes here and from here to here, etc. So that actually, when you understand the topic thoroughly, any question that comes in the exam, which is around this topic, you can easily crack. And some people feel that having a study buddy or somebody who is also on the doing the course and plans to take the certification around the same time as them sometimes helps people. For example, if there are two people, they can keep track, keep each other on track, answer each other's question. And if you have topics that you feel are tough, you can study together. So that really helps some. So you can, if you are that sort of a person who requires study buddy, then yeah, go for it. But for this, again, you need to be on the right Slack channel. And sometimes there are nice, interesting questions in the Slack channel. So remember to read the questions that come in. And if you know the answers to any of these questions, feel free to drop in and then answer them. Last but not the least, use the current curriculum for preparation. Sometimes what happens is, for example, for me, for CKS, I was appearing for the CKS, and the very next day, the syllabus for that changed from 1.24 to 1.25, and there were some small modifications. So you need to know what is valid and what is not valid. So otherwise, you spend time learning something which is probably not required, or maybe some other new topic has been added and you are not aware of it. And it's unnecessarily, you're losing like 8 to 10% of marks, right? So you don't want to be in the situation. So always refer to the latest curriculum on the Linux Foundation website and then use that. So now we've got the course, we are going through the lecture, but what about the hands-on exams? The first tip that I have sounds like the most obvious one, using the same laptop for practice as well as during the exam, where you have the administrator role. Why I stress on the administrator role is mainly because I have my office laptop. I don't have any personal one. So I plan to use the same one for the exam as well. Now I have the administrator role on this, which means the apps that get started when I restart my laptop, I can just kill all of them anytime that I wish. And I am also able to install any software, missing codecs, anything that I come across. So I should be able to use this exam. But in case your work laptop does not give you an administrator role, it's better to use one where you actually have it. Otherwise, there might be some problems on the last day of on the exam day itself. Why I prefer using the same laptop is mainly because the keys, you have a feel for the keyboard, right? So even including the key depth, etc., that actually matters to me at least. So during the exam, I did not want any surprises with a different kind of a keystroke, having to waste time, etc. So I just used the same laptop for practice and the same laptop for exam. And I would also suggest that you try to set up autocomplete, alias for kubectl, and the autocomplete for the alias in all of your practice labs and exams or whatever you're doing in the hands-on. This is mainly because sometimes in the killer SH or any of the sessions that you do, or maybe in the exam, there is a possibility that autocomplete may not be enabled. And in that case, you should be in a position to know how to set it and then go on smoothly. Because if you have the autocomplete, trust me, it makes you save a lot of time. So just check when you start a lab or a practice session, just if all these three are enabled. If not, go to the cheat sheet, which we'll come to later, and then just enable it. Yeah, this one also sounds obvious, but practice using imperative commands as much as possible. As I mentioned earlier, in a YAML, you need to know where exactly your block that you're going to paste is going to be indented. Otherwise, even if one spacing left or right, there might be some problems. And then editing a YAML file consumes a lot of time. So you want to avoid it for obvious things like creating one pod with one container, etc. And for creating resources in an imperative way, there are a lot of shortcuts for the resources. For example, PO for pod deploy for deployment, CM for config map, STS for stateful set, and so on. There is a big list. So if you know these shortcuts, it's going to save you a lot of time. But you may feel like PO instead of POD, that's one letter. There itself, you may save 1 second or 2 seconds. And this is for every single command that you write. And in the end, this will build up to 1 or 2 minutes, which may prove crucial for you in the end during the exam. And yeah, this is another command that you can try to use if your documents are loading a little bit slow. kubectl explain. Here you can give something like kubectl explain pod dot, let's say you want to know what all you can write inside a container, right? So you can say something like pod dot spec dot containers. So it will show what elements can be filled inside the containers array. And then each element, it will describe whether it's an array, what sort of value it can take, whether it's a string, a Boolean, or what exactly. So you can use this also. And sometimes it actually saves you time from looking up in the documentation. And this one is related to the vimRC, where you can set this to convert your tabs when you hit 2 spaces. But I really did not use this for 2 reasons. One, I prefer imperative commands, and most of them I ended up using imperative commands. The second reason is whenever I copy the relevant snippets from the documentation itself, I copy just 1 or 2 lines. I don't copy the whole block and then try to indent it later. So for me, it was basically not required. But if you're a person who copies the entire code and then if you prefer the YAML way of writing things, then maybe in the vimRC, this will be helpful for you. And then in the end, yeah, there are a lot of shortcuts for VI editor, but these are some of them that you need to know. If you know these, I guess this should be more than enough for you to crack the exam. You should know how to enter into the insert or the edit mode, how to leave that, how to save the file without exiting, or how to save and exit, how to get to the start of the line or get to the start of the file or get to the end of the file, how to get to the start of the line, end of the line, and then how to do the search. And then if you have to remove a section of the code, how do you do that? So you need to know the shortcuts for this. We also see that a little bit later in the demo. And then there might be some questions where you want to use custom columns or sort by or JSON path to make the answering of the question a little easy. Sometimes the question itself may require you to use some of this. So remember to practice this during the course as well, basically in the hands-on sessions. And one other thing is in the exam, with the migration to PSI, you are allowed to use multiple tabs in the terminal or multiple terminals even. So make use of that. Do the same thing during the practice sessions so that you have the memory of using that, navigating between the multiple tabs, etc. So you don't find it too difficult during the exam. And in the exam environment, there's also tmux installed. It's a terminal multiplexer, so you can divide the same terminal into multiple sessions and then use it. But I am also a tmux user. I did not use tmux, mainly for the reason I used only my laptop, which is like a 16-inch screen. And if I have to open tmux with even 2 side-by-side terminals, sessions, then it would be so tiny, I'll have to squint my eyes to look into what exactly is being displayed over there, and it still won't be visible properly. So unless you plan to have an external display which is large enough, don't use tmux, I would suggest. Just stick to multiple tabs in the terminal or multiple terminals. That should be good. But if you're using an external display, you can as well think of tmux if you are a tmux user. Practice the labs more than once. You have to do the lab at least 2 or 3 times before you attempt anything else. In the sense, we are doing the course, you would go through the entire flow once. And after that, maybe during a revision, you can go through the course content or the lectures very fast, but you do the labs religiously. Because the more you practice, more hands-on you get, the easier the exam becomes. And after you're done with the labs, there are also certain challenges online in some GitHub repositories, which are open source, available online. If you're interested, you can also try that. There are also good challenges. And with every exam purchase, you get killer sessions. You can also do that. So you can try one session of killer research and try to, after you're done, you can just export the solutions and keep that as a PDF. Mainly because you can use this later just before the exam for studies, etc. This killer research session is active for 36 hours. Although they contain the same questions, you will be able to reset it any number of times and then go on. So that's also a pretty useful tool to give you a exact hands-on kind of environment that you get in the exam. Basically, the terminal looks exactly same like you get it in the exam. So it's like doing a mock, but with the exam environment. So after you complete all of this, how do you know you are ready for the exam? Let's check. You have completed all of the practice labs, all of the mock exams, and all the lightning labs that are in the course, right? And you are able to score 100% every single time. And some of these mocks or mock exams or the lightning labs, they have a solution section or a solution video attached to them. Let's say in the solution video, the person or the instructor takes, I don't know, 45 minutes, then you should be able to do the exam in 30 minutes. Because in the video, the instructor also explains a lot of things, how to actually tackle this question, right? But you are not doing that. You're not explaining the solution to anyone. You're just solving the question. So you should be able to do it much quicker than the video. If you are able to do that, and you attempt killer SH, and then you get a high score there, yes, that means you are ready for the exam and you can schedule it. And then let's say you schedule the exam, it's a couple of days before the exam. How do you ensure that you stay chill and then you're not stressed out about it? You start with the obvious, stay well hydrated and sleep. Because if you are well hydrated and you have slept really well on the previous day or on the days leading up to the exam, that means on the day, you will not have so much of stress and the chances of falling sick are minimal. And if you're well hydrated, it also keeps your stress levels during the exam a little bit down. So that's very important. And about 1 day prior or 16-hour prior, like I mentioned, just finish one killer asset session. This is basically to remember how the exam environment looks like. And then you also have muscle memory from hitting that Control Shift C, Control Shift V so many times that during the exam, your hands will automatically go to Control Shift C, Control Shift V every time you have to do a copy and paste in the terminal. And even when you're copying from the documentation to the terminal, you'll remember the shortcuts because you have just done it like on the previous day. So you won't feel stressed out about it because something is not working. Then this is the most important thing, reading the candidate handbook. This is something I missed doing for CKS. I had done it religiously for CKAD and CKA, but I did not do this for CKS. My main idea was I have already done it 2 times. There's nothing that has changed. So I probably don't need to read it again. And what happened? I failed my first attempt of CKS, mainly because the exam environment had changed from the older way to the PSN secure browser. And after that, the feel of the terminal was completely different from the killer SH because on the killer SH, it was normal. Everything looked normal. And on the exam, everything was so zoomed out and the fonts were like really big. On the left side, the question panel consumed half of the screen. And on the other side, half, I was seeing my terminal, which was extended beyond the half of the screen that I see. And I did not know what to do. I was trying to fix that. And I did not know how exactly to do that and what exactly to do to fix that. And I failed my CKS exam by 1%. So Then after that, I went back and then read the candidate handbook to know what to do for the second time. And so don't make that mistake. Read the candidate handbook again, just a day before the exam. And you would also want to read the solutions from the killer assets which you had saved previously, because here some of the questions are really tricky, and the solutions, the approach to the solutions is what you will need to remember. Because if you get something similar during the exam, it becomes much easier to tackle them. You would also want to prepare the room in which you are going to take the exam at least one day earlier. Mainly because they insist that the table should be clean. Clean meaning there should be nothing, no documents, no pens, papers, nothing lying on the table, because you need to show them around the room as well. So in my case, I have a big printer, I have my stationery, etc., and my desk lamp, all of which I had to remove, including the laptop station. So yeah, all of that should be removed, clean, calendars, anything hanging on the walls, everything should be taken out. So do all of that, because in case you have something like a shelf with books on it and something that's not movable, ensure that you cover it. So all of this, you need to do it on the previous day. This will ensure that you don't have stress on the day of the exam. If you felt that there were some topics that were difficult to assimilate during the times that you did the course, I would suggest revisit them on the day before so that everything is fresh and then you remember the concepts properly. And during the exam, yeah, the check-in should be smooth enough. It should not take more than 15 minutes. But sometimes it does happen that it does take longer than that. For me, during the CKS, what happened was basically during the second attempt of CKS, I had scheduled it like 3 days apart from my first failure. So what happened was the PSI secure browser from the first attempt was still installed. And when I tried to start the exam, there was a minor update to the PSI browser, because of which it tried to install it, it failed, and it was stuck in a loop of some sort. So after that, I had to stop this process. I had to remove the older software and then start the check-in process again. So that took a little while for me. And then even the proctor was not immediately assigned. So I had to wait a little bit longer for the proctor to come online and then to start my exam. So there could be some delays sometimes. So ensure that you check in a little bit earlier so that you start the exam on time. Otherwise, there's the possibility that the check-in time extends. And then let's say you have planned to start the exam at 9 a.m. And then if the check-in time extends and then you start the exam at 9:15, that also means you end the exam a little later than planned. And it could encroach into your other activities that you have planned already. So just plan it in the sense, if it says the exam, the take exam button activates 30 minutes prior to the exam. So anytime in between, just ensure that you click on this a little earlier than your exam start time, ideally 15 minutes earlier, so that you finish the check-in process easily and then go on to take the exam. And like I mentioned previously, in the exam environment, as soon as you log in, if the Zoom, etc. is proper, after you click down the plus minus buttons, adjusted the Zoom to whatever you like, and first thing you do on the terminal is to check if the autocomplete is properly set. If it is not, set it, mainly because this will save you a lot of time later. Also, you are allowed to keep a bottle of water in a clear glass bottle, nothing like this, but it needs to be a clear bottle, which it should be a see-through one, or you can keep a glass of water, something like this. So take a sip of water now and then, but not too much so that you have to request a break with the instructor or the proctor. Just ensure to take a sip of water now and then, because this kind of cools you down and relaxes you during the exam if you are a little bit nervous. It could also be the case, or some of them mentioned that there was a network latency. And when you try to search for documents, the documents load really slow, and then you cannot search through the documents, etc. In that case, the kubectl explain command that I mentioned earlier, that would help you, where you can, on the terminal itself, you can check what should be the syntax, and then you can author your YAML files or modify it according to the data that you get from the kubectl explain. And this is something that I follow during the exam. If the question, after I read the question, I give myself 5 to 6 minutes to answer it. I start it, and if it feels like it's taking me longer than 5 to 6 minutes, I mark that and I come back at the end. I don't spend a lot of time more than 5, 6 minutes on any of the question. If it's like I'm towards the end, I have already passed that 6-minute boundary, then I evaluate how much time would I need more for this particular question. If my answer is something like, okay, I'll be able to do this within the next 2 minutes, then I complete it and then move on. But if it feels like I need much longer because I am only halfway through the question and I still have half to complete, then I just move, come back to it a little later. This is also another obvious one where you have to ensure that you attempt as many heavyweight questions as possible. This is mainly because the heavyweight questions, some of them could be really easy, some of them could be difficult. But since there's a possibility of partial marks as well, it's easy to go through it. And then if you complete it completely, then if it is 8% is the highest, the 8% of marks, then you get all 8%. Or even if it's a partial one, 6%, or there's a possibility of you getting much more marks on heavyweight questions, right? So it's better to attempt as many of them as possible. And there might be some questions where it says do something for a certain specific amount of time or observe this for 1 minute or so. And in that case, don't sit there waiting for 1 minute or so, because you're just wasting your precious minutes there. Go to the next question, attempt that, and then you can come back after you solve that after 5, 6 minutes, because it's definitely exceeding the 1 minute which they asked you to observe, right? So you can do that. Or if you're very sure your solution to the question is 100% right, you can come back to it at the very end. You just mark this question, move on to the next questions, and at the end, you come back. One other thing that I've not mentioned here, but it seems obvious, is for me, whenever there's a specific namespace, etc. mentioned, what I do is immediately after kubectl or k, I put that -n, the namespace. This is mainly because for the next, you continuously work on the same namespace for all of the steps that you need to do for a particular question, right? So it helps to copy that particular part and then copy it down to the terminal down there and then do edit, get, or whatever that you need to do. And also searching for a command in the history, it becomes much easier. And also, if you see any sort of issues during your exam, just ask the proctor, or if required, involve the PSI support immediately. Because if the longer you wait, because the proctor also may feel that it is not a real issue. So let's say you complete the exam and then somehow you miss by certain percent, or you definitely need to take a retake in that case. Here, Linux Foundation will send you an email which contains what were your weak points in the exam, meaning where exactly you need to focus before you take the retake. So check that and it will tell you the sections. Just go through the sections again in the course and pay attention to the labs that you're doing. You could have done very simple mistakes or silly ones even. Just ensure that you go through these topics again and focus on it. And if it was something where you failed narrowly, or it was mainly due to where you spend some more time adjusting the resolution or trying to fight with the autocomplete, etc., then in that case, I would say schedule it soon as possible because you already have the exam experience. You remember the shortcuts and everything. This time you know what exactly to do. So schedule it soon as possible before you lose that muscle memory of Control-Shift-C, Control-Shift-B, because you don't normally use that except for the exam environment. Scheduling the retake soon as possible will help you in this case. It was a very narrow area. But in case if it was like by a bigger percentage, then you need to prepare better before you attempt the exam again. So in this case, do the mock exams, do the practice labs, do the lightning labs if there are any from the course. And if you need to go through the course again, do that and only then schedule it. And in case you have the killer SH attempts, because there are 2 killer SH attempts, if you have the second attempt still alive, then you can try that out as well. If not, just go through the solutions PDF that you have exported, because this one contains all the solutions, and then it gives you a step-by-step how to tackle a particular question. Just try to go through that, and then try to visualize yourself doing that in the environment. Okay, here we have some references where these resources, okay, the first 3 resources are allowed in the exam. The first one is a cheat sheet, which actually tells you how to set up the autocomplete, etc. And it also contains some amount of JSON paths, some easy commands, and everything. The second link is a specific section from the first one, which contains a specific section from the first one, probably a different link itself. But that also contains the autocomplete setup itself. So if you can use the first link or the second link to set up autocomplete. And then the third one is it contains the entire list of kubectl commands. The fourth one is just editor shortcuts. You can use this to learn the VI shortcuts better and then use them during your practice labs. So here are those GitHub references that I mentioned. The one for CKAD, I did use that. It's a good one. The one from CKA, this one, I did go through it, but I did not use any of these for the exam, but I did have them in mind that I could potentially use them. For CKS, I did not use them, but there are some free sessions on Kilocoda as well that you could use. And of course, there are Kubernetes challenges from Code Cloud itself that also you can use. But are there any questions so far? I've been rambling for quite a lot of time now.
Sure, we'll pick up some questions from the Q&A section and answer them. Then we can move to the next part of the session. Answered a couple of them. CKS course is only available on Code Cloud website. I've also dropped the link to the same. So people who were asking for can just go through the website and check it from there. Let's take the question from the Q&A section. Is it enough? I think Kevin has explained it all. Still, is it enough to land a job with just CKA certification?
It depends what job are you talking about. If you are a developer and if there is somebody looking for hiring in the Kubernetes, then yeah, they basically look at what sort of knowledge do you have. Just having a certification does get you interview, but you will also be asked questions that you will need to crack. For that, you need to understand the topics properly. And that happens if you've gone through the Code Cloud courses and then you've understood the concepts properly. Then you will be able to crack any sort of interview, be it a DevOps engineer or a developer actually working on Kubernetes. I hope that answers your question.
Awesome. Thanks, Kevin, for a brief answer to the question. The next question is, if the power gets off or the internet gets disconnected during the exam, will the exam resume later or will postpone to some other day?
I have not experienced this, but this would be a good question for the Linux Foundation support. Because you are already, if I had to guess, I would say you will need to write to support, explain to them that there was a power outage and then gets help on that. But it would be great if you schedule it from office or somewhere where there is a very less chance of a power outage. Or if you are expecting a power outage, just ensure that you take the exam on a day where there is no power outage, or you find a different location where you can take it without any interruptions.
I hope that answers your question. And the slides and the recordings would be sent to the Slack channel as well as on the Office Hours with Community channel. So you may have a look to these slides later as well. The other question is, what other materials are available on the GitHub for CKADE? Can you please share the link? I think link would be shared post the session, so you can take it from the slides as well. And someone had already shared. Thanks, Ramkumar, for the references as well. You can go through them. Yeah, recording and slides would be shared at the end of the session. The next question is, I think Killer SH will have 2 sessions, right? Is that both session will be available only for 36 hours? Or in 36 hours, we can take Killer SH number of times as much as possible, as you said, with the reset option?
There are 2 sessions for Killer SH. Each session is valid for 36 hours. And each session, you can reset it any number of times. Reset meaning for the first 2 hours, then the clock running. And after 2 hours, the clock stops. But the session continues. You can continue working as much as possible. But for 2 hours, you know how much of questions you are able to solve. So this, you can reset it any number of times during the 36 hours during which the session is valid. But in the session 1 and session 2, you get the same questions. It's basically for you to practice getting faster with the questions.
Awesome, thanks. I hope that answers your question. The next question is, what is the minimum passing score for CKAD? I think 66. It's already mentioned by Ruchika. Am I correct, Shwetha?
It is 66 for CKA and CKAD. For CKS, it is 67%.
All right.
All
right. The next question is, so if we attempt the question somewhere near we get by, do we get any kind of percentage for marks instead of full percentage?
Yes, there's partial scoring as well.
Okay. The next is, did you check that things were working after every question or at the end?
That is a really good question. In my case, I checked it immediately after the question. I
Awesome.
forgot to cover that, but yes, you need to verify the solution that you have provided is indeed correct. During the practice sessions, also during the labs, every time, just practice doing that. So you get quicker at solving plus verifying the same. That was a really good question. And thank you.
Awesome, Jessica. Thanks, Ruchika, for sharing the Kubernetes doc. And can I schedule anytime in 12 months after purchase?
Within 12 months, yes, you can schedule it anytime. But you need to ensure that in case a retake is required, that should also be consumed within this 12-month period. So yeah, you need to plan it. But yes, you can schedule it anytime you wish.
All right. The next question by Ajay is, please share a link for automatic setup for kubectl. Is there any video on Code Cloud for this setup?
On Code Cloud, I'm not aware, but I'll show you how to do that.
Yeah, sure. I think that has been also answered by Ram. Thanks, Ram, for answering it. It has been covered in CKAD and CKA Code Cloud Labs. The next question is, exam environment will be new for me. What happens to my exam if somehow my internet gets lost or my PC is going to stuck? Do I have the retake? I think that's answerable. That's already answered, right?
During the session, it has also happened to me that I lost internet connection in between, but you can immediately reconnect. And then probably you'll need to go through the same check-in process again sometimes, but sometimes if the proctor understands, then you don't have to do that. It depends. If it is a loss of the exam environment alone, the proctor is still able to see you, or you lose the complete internet connection, in which you start the entire check-in process again. But yeah, the exam clock keeps running and there is no stopping. So all of this time that you use for checking in, you're consuming the exam. Yeah. That's unfortunate, but That's the reality.
Awesome. Let's take the last question. Exam hours for CKAD, CKS.
2 hours.
All right. Let's continue with this session and we'll take the other questions at the end of the session.
Okay, sure. For example, K get PO or K is the shortcut that I always use. I'm fond of it. So let's say to check if it is set or not, you can simply run the K get PO or some sort of a command. If you get some output which says no resources found or some or in a list of ports, then you know the alias is already set. But if not, what you could do is just go to the Kubernetes docs. Let's go here and then search for cheat sheet on the left. You do that. The first result, here you go. Just copy paste these two and then these two into the terminal. Basically, just a sec. Yeah, this one, wait a minute. Yeah, this one you can do it. This will straight away go into the bash RC. And these two you have to put into the bash RC. So let's say, oh no, not here. Yeah. Okay, how do I minimize this now? Oh, okay. You still see my terminal, the code cloud thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, we can see your terminal.
Okay. Okay, so we go to the bash T here.
Able to see your screen. Can you reshare it again?
Oh, okay. So when did you lose that?
I think you were just explaining about, you just copied the command from the Kubernetes doc and then after that we lost the screen stuff. So you
Oh,
can share it from there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you
Now
see
it's
the terminal now? Okay.
Yeah.
So what I did was, so these three commands, this one and these two, these you'll need to set into the bash RC file. So what we do is we go into the bash RC, go to the end of the file, and then you see you here in the lab, this is already set. Alias K equals kubectl, complete dash F, these two, and this source thing. So all these three, you require them. So you put them and then do dash RC. You're basically sourcing that. Either you do this or you close the terminal and open the terminal. So with that, the changes will take effect. So you do this and you have the shortcuts set. So previously, if K get PO was saying no K unrecognized command K or something like that, after you set it into the bash RC and then you source it once, that will go away. So once, if it is set properly, then you should see some sort of output like this. So that was one thing. And do you see my terminal now?
Yep, it's visible.
Yeah, cool. Let's say YAML editing now. Deploy, engine X, YAML, let's go. So here you may have questions like, how do you go into the edit mode to edit anything? I had mentioned some shortcuts earlier, right? So to insert anything, remember I for insert, just click I on your keyboard and it goes into the insert mode. And then anything you type on your keyboard starts getting input into the data. So if you want to come out of the edit mode, just click escape. Escape will exit out of that edit mode. Then you can move around the file again normally without accidentally editing something. So another useful command here is the search. So let's say you are asked to change something like image name or something. So what you can do is type / image and then hit enter. So let's say you have a container, if you have managed fields appearing in your YAML, ideally it should not after 1.22, but let's say you have managed fields appearing there. So this won't be your first hit. So in that case, what you can do is after it has shown you the first result for image, you want to go to the one which is template spec containers. That's the one section that you want to edit. So you can type N on your keyboard. So it will go to the next occurrence of image. So for example, image pull policy also starts with image, right? So it goes to that occurrence. So another N, so it continues searching from the bottom and then hits to the top because I don't have anymore. So I came to the image section here. So how do I go to the end of the line? Because I need to navigate to the end of the line. Here in this case, Nginx is like a very small name because it's using the default Docker Hub. But let's say you have your own private repository, then you would have a really big name there. So in that case, what you have to do is to go to the end of the line, you can use the $sign. On my keyboard, dollar is Shift 4, it goes to the end of the line. So let's say edit that. After that, just type I, and then you can input anything in there. So that's a shortcut. To go to the start of the line, type 0, it comes to the start of the line. We have already seen search. So let's go to the top of the file, GG. 2 Gs is a shortcut to go to the top of the file. To the bottom of the file is Shift G. And let's say this entire section of status is something I don't want, right? So I have to remove this entire section. So what I could actually do is if I know how many lines are there, I can just say type D10D to remove 10 lines. In this case, it looks like a lot more than 10 lines and I'm not patient with counting. So I say D25D. So it removes entire bottom part. It says 19 lines were removed, right? So wherever you keep the cursor from that section, starting from that line, it removes all the lines towards the bottom. So now I want to save this file, right? So I type :W. This will save the file, but still keep you in the file. It will not exit it. Let's say you want to exit, it's :Q. But if you want to save and exit, it's :WQ out of the file now. So that was it. And yeah, let's say you want to create a deployment. In my case, I usually do this. Let's say for me, I'm just doing it in the default namespace, but you can also apply this for any of the namespaces. For me, I follow this particular convention. Create deploy, just give it a name test. Let's say we are doing a busy box image, and then I give replicas 2. It creates the deployment, right? Let's say I want to have 2 containers in my thing and Nginx. I can do that also. I just have to rename my deployment. See, that's also possible. In deployments, there is a way to create pods with more than one container. So it's better when you know the commands to do that. And let's say I did some steps and I want to come back to this particular command, right? So in that case, what do? You don't have to click up arrow and then keep searching your history. There's also, if you do Control-R, it activates a search. So if you are following a particular convention, then it becomes easier to search. Cake-N. In my case, that's the reason I use the namespace in the beginning. And create deploy test. Let's say right now it's showing me test2 because that's the latest command that I used. If I say test space, then it shows me the command that I had used. I can just type enter. And then let's say for create, of course, it will fail. But if it was something else, then yeah, you can actually, it was a get or edit, then yeah, it does the action. And sometimes it's possible you type the command and then you realize, oh, you forgot to do some other action that was supposed to be done before. Then what do? Because you already have the full command there, right? And you don't want to lose that command. Either you can copy the whole command, put it into a notepad, or there is an easier way. Type Control-A in the terminal and you go to the start of the line and you can just put a hash there. So it's in your history now, but it has not executed. The command will still be there. So you can actually use it anytime you require. So let's say now after some steps, let's say get PO, get config map, get secrets. I want to go back to that particular one and then try to apply that, right? So Control R, then first thing I do is hash, because that's the one I had done, right? So Control A, I remove that hash from the beginning. And now I feel that I have to maybe change the number of replicas to 5. Then Control E, that will put the cursor to the end of the terminal there on that particular line. So make whatever changes you have to do, and then hit enter. So yeah, these are some of the shortcuts that I wanted to show you. Yeah, that concludes my demo as well.
Yeah, sure. Let's take a couple of questions now. And we are actually running short of time. So maybe other questions can be taken on the Slack community. So if some of your questions are unanswered, feel free to post in our Slack community in CKAD or CKS channel, and we'll be taking them forward. Yeah, I think I recently gave CKA and passed. Okay, CKAD, that's been well answered by Ram Kumar. And also, how can we copy paste? That's already repeated. The next question is how to deal with YAML indentations errors quickly, and how to check the errors when there are any issues while doing K-apply with YAML files. Any tricks or resources would be appreciated.
Any sort of a YAML error is only visible when you try to apply it. I am at least aware of no other way where you can validate the YAML. Because if there is a problem, you apply it, it throws you an error. If it is fine, then it actually goes ahead and creates the resource. That is one reason I actually stick to imperative commands. But there is a possibility that you have to apply something, and then if your YAML has errors, then it will complain. Let's say the Nginx thing here, let's say I misplace this. Let's say I move the replicas to the level as spec, and then I try to apply it. It tells me on line 17, mapping values are not allowed in this context. But that kind of doesn't tell me much, but I can always go to line 17. Okay, the search for lines is colon, and you type the line number. There it goes. It tells me line 70, but ideally it is on here. So it may or may not be on the same line either. So that's the trouble with YAML that I really like to avoid by switching to as much imperative commands. But sometimes the messages, they are clear as well. They actually tell you in this context, this element is not allowed. In that case, okay, you have made some sort of a issue with placing the element in a wrong section, or you have probably used maybe an array to define it when there is actually a map that you were supposed to give or something.
All right. I hope, yeah, that answers your question. The other question we have is lots of Kubernetes API type doesn't have any imperative command. Are there any shortcut for such use cases in order to save time?
A lot of them actually have shortcuts. You just need to find them out from their documentation. Oh, the other one that I was trying to show is this one. In the cheat sheet, if you go for, let's say, generated commands, let's hope this gives the use meter. Yeah, this one. So here, let's say for creating a pod, I believe it does give me, if there is a deployment. Okay, this doesn't really give me. Yeah. I think there is some sort of a resource where you can actually list out all the shortcuts. I think it is the API resources, but I'll verify this after the session and then get back to you.
All right. Thank you so much for the long hours of this. Okay, thank you so much for your feedback. He's saying thank you for the shortcut. Really helpful to take long hours to search for these shortcuts. The other question is, I'm a Linux admin. I need to boost my career and I need to learn Kubernetes. So which basic certification I can do?
If you're an administrator and you want to continue in the administration itself, then yeah, you can do the CKA and CKS. That would be CKA would be a start.
All right. Someone just replied, it's kubectl API resources where you were looking
Yeah,
for.
exactly. That's all. API resources, and let's say you want only the namespace one, or you can also go for this. Or K API resources will give you everything. All the
Yep. Thanks. That has been answered. Are we allowed to use generated commands?
Yes, this page is actually in the Kubernetes IO docs. So anything in this particular namespace, you are okay to use Kubernetes IO docs. Yes, that you keep use this for the labs, etc. By the time you get to the actual exams, be sure that you don't have to refer this for a long time.